So this is truly a very special moment, a beginning of a new era. I've lost my red hat, or the red hat. It was never really mine, just something that was here. Now it's not. And where is it? Well, who knows how to find something like that. I'm now in a very auspicious and kind of precious situation, not just to be holding this fantastic being, this wonderful being, um, but I'm also here for a 10-day meditation retreat, getting the chance to attend, to be a servant for two meditation masters from Myanmar here in Vietnam. And this is the first time that I've ever had this kind of opportunity to be an attendant, to be a what's called a kapia, and to serve monks or to serve meditation masters. When I was a monk, I've had various people serve and attend to me in that way, but this is my first chance to be in that subservient position, or not to be the most important person in the room when it comes to practicing meditation. And so I really do feel this is a new beginning, and to dive into meditation for 10 days, and also to dive into service for 10 days concerned with Buddhism and awakening, and specifically the Vipassana meditation, mindfulness with detachment meditation. There are innumerable and really so many ways to describe or to talk about anything. So, this is commonly known as a coconut, but here in Vietnam, where coconuts are all over the place. In America, you're not going to find coconuts on your local street corner. But here in Vietnam, you'll find coconuts everywhere. And if you go up to someone and you say, "Hey, I want a coconut," they're going to look you in the face like your head is a coconut, because a coconut is just a word. And words are just kind of sounds, aren't they? So, how much importance how much importance do we as human beings who are interested in 5D consciousness and Illuminati awakening and all that kind of stuff, how much importance do we give to these sounds that we call words? How much attachment do we have built up to the combination of words in our head, or the combination of words that we hear or that we see? And the true matter of fact is that these words are just what they are. This isn't a coconut. This is not a coconut. It's not profound to think that or to say that, but to realize, to know that this is not a coconut is very, very important. So, if someone were to ask us, what is a coconut? What kind of answer can we really give to that? Because you can't take truthfully, absolutely, something out of everything. Something is always imbued with everything, isn't it? Is it or is it not? What? What? Is this a puppy or is this a meal? Is this a companion? As the mom dog just started barking when I'm holding her puppy. Is this a puppy or is this a meal? So what I mean to say by that is that there's many ways to meditate. There's many ways to understand a particular person, a particular situation, a particular experience, and what I'm emphasizing here is more of a powerful openness and a powerful curiosity about what already is. This puppy, I don't want to bother it too much from my YouTube. The grand mystery. Beyond appearances. Heard in the tip-tap of the puppy. Tip-tap, tip-tap. Uskuru, uskuru, uskuru. Uskuru, uskuru. Uskuru, uskuru. Well, without this intensity, we're subject to the habit energy of our past and our parents and all of the good and bad and neutral things and experiences that have happened around us. So this intensity, this ferocity is essential to break through our delusions, to break through our greediness, to break through our suffering. Intensity is intimacy, intimacy is development of the heart. And the great sadness of the modern era for millions and millions of children, I don't want to say around the world, but especially in America, is that we have all of these children growing up with basically nothing. No meaningful, deep, wonderful, sustained, meaningful experiences in their lives. With mentors, with teachers, with family, with community, and a little bit of trauma sprinkled in. And so we get into this way of growing up that is basically boredom with pleasure and trauma. It's no way to grow. And I often look at my own life as a kind of reparenting or rearing myself, raising myself again to be constantly on the fulcrum, on the pinnacle of more and more involvement in meaningful experiences. And I've found nothing more rewarding and meaningful for me than being in community, being around meditation masters, being concerned with Buddhism, Buddhist monasticism. And I have this really new era that I'm entering now, going into this 10-day meditation retreat of service and being in a Buddhist monastery, being around so many people that are connected in one way or another to the Buddhist teachings, to being concerned with enlightenment, to even having that notion of this possibility of enlightenment or non-duality. And I try to share myself. I try to share my experience and be accessible for the benefit of others. A lot of people basically have no meaningful experiences in their lives. They grew up with parents that were either divorced or both of them were working a lot, and the parents were addicted to their phones and watching movies on TV and news. And in the same way, their children are kind of raised to be addicted to consuming media. And that's just so far off from what human beings need, especially human children need, to develop a robustness and individuation, and to have more and more meaningful experiences that are sustained and continuous. We're just getting started. What does it mean for you to be free from suffering? What does it mean for you to be free? And I add on to that, can you get that freedom? Can you experience that freedom? Can you embody that freedom without needing the world to change according to your ideas about it? Can you access true freedom here and now? Have you ever even posited or brought up the notion of true freedom, of being free, of being without suffering? And this all comes back to the realization that we are at the wheel, or we are in the nuclear reactor control room of our lives. Hello? Yes. Okay. That we have the controls, and we have the responsibility, we have the gift to work with our own internal state, and to learn how to cultivate the kind of mind and life and emotions and experience that we want. Etc. It's a great question, Wong Hen. Great question. And so, when we grow up, like, trapped in that paradigm of screens, it becomes, a big responsibility, kind of like a heavy weight, to be able to go beyond that. Uh, and to break out of that, because not everybody's in that situation. There are people that grow up, I don't know, they grow up going on camping trips regularly. They grow up with a large variety of family members, of role models, of community members that
Please keep the open the door for me.
okay, yeah.
And I want to borrow the electric
Okay, please, yeah, cool.
with the keys. Yeah.
Key everything open.
Yeah.
Open. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, in some way we have to become revolutionaries in the face of our trauma. And it can be a gift. It can be a gift to ourselves, but also to others as well. Chúc mừng năm mới. Which? See you again. So Wong Hon Wen, excuse me. What should I do when I realize I'm not mindful in my thoughts without feeling guilt?
Borrow the key of the electric.
Electric car. Yeah, sure, of course. Sorry, I thought you meant for the door.
Yeah.
Key is inside in the glove. Yeah, when you hear, in there, in the front. Yeah.
Okay.
So it doesn't, it doesn't really matter that we were not mindful in our thoughts. It matters that we've recognized. And in that recognition, there's nothing to be guilty about because that's the gift, right? The gift of forgetting is the gift of remembering. So we always have to be flexible enough with our, kind of like the judgments that we make about our ego and about ourselves to, to go beyond that and to come back to compassion, to come back to listening to the Dhamma, right? To come back to having a relationship with a teacher, with a community, with a practice. Whatever form the Buddha is going to take for you, you want to have some kind of active relationship with that. Yeah, falling in love with Mara is like falling in love with a dream. So it's not particularly profound, it's not more profound than going back to sleep in the morning after you wake up. So, we all do that. It feels great to go back to sleep when you're tired, but there can be many side effects. You can get very used to this world of illusion and you lose the light. And this is what we need, this is what the world needs, is that light, that awareness, that presence, that depth of really being there beyond conceptual thought. Being there in a way that's beyond conceptual thought. And children need that especially as well. Because conceptual thought always creates a justification for itself. So you can just convince yourself of whatever, that whatever you're doing is okay or justifiable. And when we have that light, when we have that sharpness, that power to go beyond conceptual thought, there's no room for the stuckness in our habit energies that don't bring benefit. So we have to see then that there's something more natural to our being that has nothing to do with conceptual thought about our identity. There's a ground of being. There's a nature. There's a truth, right? There's a reality, we can say, and that reality is not reliant upon conceptual thought. Conceptual thought arises and passes away within reality or within everything, but everything does not rely on that conceptual thought. Kind of like how there's all these things in space, like the Earth is a thing in space, but space doesn't rely on the Earth. So that there is a constant reminder of not thinking. And thoughts kind of rely upon that space in the mind to arise and to pass away. But not thinking doesn't rely on thoughts. So here, this is a place to build up one's relationship with not thinking, you know, and then to unpack that and see why you're interested in that, or why you're moving towards that, or curious about that, etc. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and love. Our God is an awesome God. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and grace, forgiveness, emptiness.
Đứa nào đừng tôi địch cái này. Mày biết rồi. Ăn con rạng không? Dạ thôi để em ăn đi, nó có ăn rồi. Con có ăn lại cho. Ăn lên thử. Cảm ơn. Ăn đồ mình quýnh à. Ôi, cái tung bàn kìa. Chuyện nhỏ đó. Tung bàn của ông kìa. Cái ăn người bẻ không biết. Cái dạ, của em á. Cho em cái túi. Ủa cái này của ông. À của ông. Ok. Túi ship 3 cái đồ gửi nhà bớt đồ quá đó. Đi đây đỡ giặt. Thì bao nào mình giặt chứ không phải đỡ giặt, mà giờ không có mang theo nổi. Ba cái bánh nú đó hư rồi hả? Ừ.
I had to buy some new clothes for my attendant responsibilities. attending to the 2 meditation masters from Myanmar here at this retreat.
có sai chạy dạo cô chắc nó mới không lên đi hơi với ông cô kêu cái đường kèo ở trên ấy vậy
Chiều.
đâu cho cô có được hơi ăn vậy để đi cho một cục
Bự hơn hả chú? Sáng lấy 2 giờ lấy. Chú, sáng lấy đi nha.
dạ
Sáng lấy đi nha.
bánh hả chị cho em xin giờ luôn đi em về em ship đồ lại ừ cái này có ông cho này chứ phải của cậu nè này đó ông cho đó đâu ghê đó là 2 con cưa trời ơi có mà 2 con uống hết trơn rồi rồi hết rồi con đi chơi dễ gì đi tới tao lại đi chơi đi nha chứ sao về con nghe không đi chơi đi chúc ông bỏ tiền vô túi để ông cho ăn thêm bánh rồi của ông
In Vietnam. Oh, you just stretch. Just stretch your legs out, relax. It's not a big deal, really. Basically, none of our experiences that we have as we're meditating, whether it's physical or mental, are a big deal. And so our meditation practice is an exercise of focusing on being, just being, without building up stress or without building up contraction in just being. So that's the real meditation, the highest ideal of it. But in the process of doing that or developing that just being, that natural awareness, right, that natural awakening, that freedom from clinging, we're basically the meditation methods that we're practicing and the different ways that we're getting involved in meditation and yoga or Buddhism is doing good deeds. And so good deeds also have side effects. Good deeds also have tension in your legs, or now you find yourself teaching meditation for people, right, or being someone who's got a lot of experience, so you're in the hot seat. And all of that is, once again, to not take too seriously, but to be mindful of. And that thing is like a focus point. So as you notice that thing, it's like there's a focus there. And then to relax and release that focus. To relax and release that I, but to maintain awareness. Turn up your volume, Bilbo Baggins. You might just get that coconut. It's all schizophrenic nonsense, Sonia. That's the reality. And we've become, kind of our TikTok spirituality, our spiritual consumerism, spiritual materialism has ruined our relationship with the nature. So all of that energy that's spent divine mind and spatial presence and inverted resonance and all these kinds of things, Tantra Kundalini, that's all supposed to be spent on you taking care of the garden, you being very generous, right? You making donations of some kind. Um,
Có gì thùng một không? Bỏ nhà rồi. Một đống chở rau chiều á. Về mà lấy một cọc.
so it's food for the fire, right? Even our depression, our anxiety, our complicated conceptual thought, as positive as it is, as negative as it is all schizophrenic firewood for the fire of awareness, being natural, being generous. So actually, we should practice our meditation as a kind of generosity. We don't just meditate for ourselves, but we meditate for all. We don't just study the Dhamma for ourselves, but we study for all. We're not just here for ourselves, we're here for all.
Vợ bố sống chung với lại
So the whole of the enlightenment stuff, it has nothing to do with your preferences or your opinions. Zero. Like your agreement, your like about it, your disagreement, your thought about it, your opinion about it are completely and totally irrelevant. That's the practice place. That's the practice way. Wonderful, Sonia. You know, it's great when we can get some, some fellow schizophrenics in here and relax and come back to our nature, come back to awareness. Practice donation, practice making offerings. It's fantastic. What is enlightenment? It's a coconut. Enlightenment is a coconut.
cái đó mẹo nghe đầu tiên được không bố? Thợ nó ruột mẹo.
It's different strokes for different folks. So if you're going to come here and waste time, at least you paid the entrance fee. Oh wait. So this is a priceless opportunity to dissolve thinking. How do you dissolve thinking? That's a good question. How do I dissolve thinking? How do you dissolve thinking? And that's where we get into the gardening, the human or the doing good deeds with mindfulness and detachment, or we start to learn about meditation. We start to ask, what is meditation? How do I practice that? Can I set up a call with you to learn about meditation? Sure. Sure you can. Welcome in, Boris. These are real dogs, and this is a real situation, and this is a real Buddhist monastery in Vietnam. You may have never seen before dogs at a Buddhist monastery in Vietnam. You certainly have never seen before these dogs at this Buddhist monastery in Vietnam, here and now. And so this is a kind of miraculous, unknown, direct experience that encompasses your entire life. They better be. They better be Buddhist dogs. One of the biggest lessons I can share with you is that it is utterly and completely pointless to argue to win with someone who is arguing with you to win. That is utterly pointless and utterly ridiculous. It's like trying to win planting the same tree. So if you have the chance and the opportunity to sit mindfully without attachment, and it kind of has to be face to face with someone who wants to argue to win, but you don't want to win, then that's a wonderful gift for them, and that's a wonderful gift for anyone who gets to see it. But otherwise, just don't do it. Don't spend time in those spaces. And what we're really doing when we do that is we're looking for meaningful activity. And we're looking for meaningful activity through conflict. And that is the last thing you want to spend your time doing.
Có bữa mệt ngủ sớm 10 giờ 9 giờ. Có như bữa đi còn vậy hôm qua ăn tô cháo xong rồi vô ngủ liền.
This is really like an investor's circle. Only investors are allowed here. If you don't invest, if you don't donate, if you don't give seriously, then you just don't have a seat at the table. And we can kind of kowtow around for a while, we can kind of hang out on the outskirts and snitch and snatch and take what we like and what we want. But at the end of the day, you get what you give. And your voice, your understanding is as relevant as how empty your pocketbook is, concerned with what you're attached to. And you'll have to deal with that on your own terms. Oh, how wonderful. Miss M, Nika, Sour, Vodka, Don't Drink Alcohol, Sham, LFC, Derek, Apollos, Brahmadiorama. So I don't even know if these people are here. Kevin, Z Corp, you're all a member now. And that's the joy, right? Through our generosity, we can bring other people into the fold. In fact, what the intention kind of is, a good intention is actually overwhelming others with generosity. And that's how you get through the flick and the flack, and you get to the tofu of the matter. You get to the stinky tofu of the matter by overwhelming generosity. I have no choice but to get involved because of how generous you've been. That's the mindset we want to have. Force others' involvement through our depth of giving. And, if others don't want to be involved with all that generosity, well, we've gotten through the flick and the flack. The whole path is generosity. The Buddha's entire life was through the donations of the people who could see the benefits of being free. The Buddha didn't sell them anything. The Buddha didn't advertise anything to them. The Buddha didn't set up any actions. The Buddha just was. And through that freedom, those who could recognize it sustained his life. If you're not generous, what do you think you're doing here? Stealing? Stealing that which you determine to be valuable? Taking without giving? That doesn't sound right to me. God is kind of a broken word. I prefer coconut. Can coconut be not this or that and everything? Sure it can. In fact, it already is. The coconut already is everything. This coconut is the universal mind. What else could it be? This coconut is the mind of the universe. Oh, Shelley. We have to learn to honor. Well, firstly, we have to be open, right? But once we're open, we have to learn to honor our curiosity and honor our interest and honor where our attention is. It doesn't mean we perpetuate that thing that we're interested in, but it means we're willing to take a deep look without blinking and then go from there. We will never learn what's valuable if we can't get our head out of the gold-filled toilet of our consumption, of our desire, of our fear. So all kind of pleasure, all kind of terrors, all kind of wonders in our desire and our fear. Well, it doesn't abide anywhere. The universal mind isn't stuck anywhere. The universal mind is just in alreadiness of all things. Divine love is generosity without expectation. There's nothing to negate. There's nobody to negate anything. Negation is just invitation. Thank you, Rainbow. And may it be that way. May it continue to be that way. When what we appear to have or to own begins to be for everyone, spontaneously, continuously, life takes on an entirely different flavor. The flavor of rainbows, not Skittles, but pure rainbows. Maybe like rainbow plasma emanating from crystal Buddha relics. Don't try to be anything. Love doesn't try to be anything.
Trời mưa nó nhiễu vô ghế nó ướt mà còn hơn nữa.
Không, nếu mưa định chụp nó nữa mà.
Cái gì mà chùm chùm
That's right. That's
Nhiêu
right.
được rồi.
Come. Let's go. Come on, Sue. Mofak. Emptiness is without having. Openness is without having, for that matter, let alone emptiness. It's not really about having something. Having something is just going to Best Buy. So this isn't about having anything, whether it's universal love or magic potatoes or whatever you want to have. This isn't about that, regardless of what name you give to it. And I encourage you to stop giving names to things. If you want to give names to things, don't try to be right. Write poetry. And writing poetry is very obtuse when you're trying. Well, if that's tough, call me Mr. Call me the Muffin Man. That's a good way to think about it, right? It's and I would replace connotation with context. And generosity is how we actually get contextual. When we don't practice generosity, it's very, very difficult to find ourselves in a context that has weight or authenticity or meaning. And then our words and our concepts and our systems are just all based on thoughts about thoughts about thoughts. And you can't grow a mango tree with thoughts, you know, and if you're in America, it's very difficult to get quality fruit. Rock, if you want to see strength, I recommend you go and meet my teacher, Sayadaw Otamatara, who will be in LA, the LA area, for quite a few months, beginning next month. So get your ticket, go and visit, and you'll see some strength. You'll see some raw power, visceral power, and not visceral fat, because my teacher is very, very skinny. Sayadaw is very, very skinny. Uh-oh, background noise coming in. Well, it's easy to be the king of the castle. It's difficult to be the monk on the roadside. Oh, yeah. Actually, I used to say, and I used to think, kind of like there's the famous Rob's green sweater. Um, I used to say, you know, there's the best way if I meet an enlightened master, monk, or something like that, you know, how I'm going to check, how I would know for sure, or how I would want to check, how I would want to know for sure, is that I'd slap them right in the face. But I realized that was just my ego attached to the idea of enlightenment being a thing, especially being a thing that, you know, I wanted to have, and for that matter, wanted someone else to have. So maybe they could give it to me, or what have you. You know, and we've kind of lost that connection as well to, like, what have you? What do you have? What do you have to offer? What are your experiences? You know, what are your value points that you may be able to offer in this situation? You know, we're so selfish and built up in our own personalistic mindset of ownership. What do you mean, make a donation? What do you mean, practice generosity? You haven't done nothing for me. Well, that's up to you. But the generosity is not, it's not really about making transaction. It's about being beyond giving and receiving, beyond ownership. How about this? Can you all hear me okay? Can you all hear me clearly? Great. Wonderful. In the era and in the world of social media, we've really seem to have lost our access to immediacy and the value to what is already here, the value to what is spontaneously present. And that means that we're always scheming. You know, how can I get more followers? How can I get more views? How can I get more money? How can I get more people to buy my program or buy into what I believe? And in the spontaneous, ever-present, universal mind of nowness, without conceptual thought, there's not really anything to buy into, and there's no need to make more of anything. There's no need to develop anything, because what is already here is fully developed. And then we start to notice and start to appreciate all of these points of value, all of these points of wonderfulness in the ground, in our bodies, in the environment, in the colors and the sounds, in the temporariness of thoughts. Looks like we have a question. Hold on, I'll pull it up here. That's great. Welcome, everybody. The great mysteries of the universe, Malik. Some questions never get answered. You know, sometimes the answer is not what we're expecting. And the best answers are the unexpected answers. But we're so lost in trying to get that answer that we don't listen enough to actually receive the answering that is already, you know, or the answerings that's completely outside of what we expected. And that's the kind of answer that you want to get, isn't it? The answer that you don't expect. The answer that isn't based on your own ego. Yeah, that's right. That what is here and now doesn't need more. And that's like the best foundation for building whatever we would like to build. Because those intentions that we have, like I of course have the intention to build community. I have the intention to be a resource for more people, to offer more resources to more people concerned with the path, you know. But if I'm seeking, if I'm conniving, if I'm scheming, if I'm planning, frankly, to build up my social media empire, or to build up my structure or web of bringing in new followers, that sincere intention that comes like from a child's heart is corrupted. And that corruption then bleeds into whatever is created. So it's best to actually know your intention and to allow that intention to be in your heart, and then live, you know. Live in the present. Live without expectation. Live with the openness of the okayness of things falling apart. And you will see that there's tons of Buddhist outreach in prisons. Actually, the Buddhist demographic for prisons is totally outside of the expected um, amount of people who would be Buddhist, because there's so many great Buddhist monks and teachers that go into prisons to help these people. So Wong Hon Wen, a great question. Is it the correct motivation to practice dana if we are concerned about the good merit from it? Whatever leads you to practice dana is a good thing. Whatever leads you to practice generosity is a good thing. It's just a matter of you practicing generosity without trying to get what you want from it. When it's a very selfish intention, right? So if you're making donations, like a big example that I worked with, even though I'm sure I could do it, recently deceased. So in Buddhist Asian communities, what a lot of people do, sometimes but maybe a loved one has died or a loved one is going through great difficulties, and then that person will make a donation, make a large donation to a Buddhist monk or a temple or a teacher, and then that teacher's work is to transform that offering into, really to detach, to use it for detachment, and then the merits of that are offered out to the recently deceased one. So that's a little bit, a little bit outside of the cultural background that most of us are familiar with, but it's a beautiful thing to do. If you believe that someone has wisdom and compassion and has access to the higher mind, concerned with ending suffering, concerned with profundity of life, and you can make a donation, make an offering to that person or to that institution concerned with that person who's sick or going through difficulties, etc., that's a wonderful thing to do. It's very traditional, very normal Buddhist thing to do. Because, think about it, we do funerals, right? In the West, we do funerals. So imagine, instead of spending all this money, thousands and thousands of dollars on this funeral service, right, conducted by one priest, of a religion you're not even following, if all of those resources went to a Buddhist temple or, a group of monks or a teacher or something, and they came together and did chanting, did blessings, did ceremonies concerned with your loved one. I think that's a wonderful thing to do. So we want to be motivated. What I would say is we want to be motivated to give, concerned with giving, concerned with mindfulness, concerned with virtue, concerned with cultivation of the higher mind, concerned with wisdom, right? Wisdom and compassion. I think it's very powerful. And the world actually doesn't work the way that we think the world works, right? So it comes back to the coconut. So like you see a coconut as being a coconut, as being this separated thing from, falls off a tree and you drink the meat out of it, right? But that coconut is literally like quantum 5D universal mind reality. And in the same vein, your attachment to your body, your attachment to your mind, your attachment to being alive, and you literally can die at any moment. So the way that we think about the world is not actually the way that the world is. And there's a lot of things concerned with, let's say, higher mind, that are totally mystical and out there. And we can have a real relationship with working with those um, things, but not based on our ego. And so generosity and the motivation to practice generosity, to volunteer, to serve, to be an attendant, um, to make donations, whatever it is, should always come from this place of giving concerned with giving, giving concerned with detachment, giving concerned with doing good deeds with mindfulness and detachment. That's the right motivation to give. That's how I think about it. And it's not just money, but most people who are, have a family or work a job or have homes, things like that. That's your treasure store of attachment is in your money. So exploiting that money to exploit your attachment, to go beyond it, it makes a lot of sense. And a rule of thumb for giving, how much to give, how much to offer, how much to donate. Um, for people of lesser means, donate what you can, offer what you can. For people of medium means, meaning that you're kind of well off in terms of being able to take care of yourself, donate more than you think is appropriate. And if you're a wealthy person, good luck, because as it says in the Bible, the pathway to heaven for a wealthy person is about as easy as putting a coconut through a needle. You have to stop. You have to stop interfering with the sound. You think that the sound is interfering with you, but it's actually you interfering with the sound. So try to be open to the sound. Try to listen to the sound as it is, without interfering with it. Yeah, so Frederick, this is a great point. This is an important point. My advice for people who have a similar mindset, to be able to start meditating regularly and putting some intensity into the meditation practice, you should be focusing much more on practicing generosity, practicing virtue, being concerned with a teacher, much more than you should be trying intensively to meditate. And don't be surprised, you're going to lose everything that you have. And in a sense, we've already lost it. So be less stingy, be more fluid, be more open about your resources and what you have access to, especially your time. Your time and the actions of the body and the mind. Be much more open, much more creative in how much you're willing to give. To give up, to give away, to give in. And it is like that. I mean, it is really like that. it can seem convenient for me because, I'm this kind of homeless guy who, was a monk and now is teaching meditation and, is surviving completely on donations and generosity. So, wow, it's really convenient for me that generosity is so important. But it is that way. There's no way to get around self-sacrifice. It's like conflating the depth of value of thinking about things versus meaningful lived experiences. And you have to go through, the wealthy person here is kind of the person that is attached, the person that is not enlightened, right? The ordinary person that is just this conflagration of concurrent thoughts all clinging together, right? You have to begin to practice generosity. You have to begin to practice self-sacrifice. To see that the reality of what you hold on to is impermanent and actually not satisfactory and isn't actually yours, even as it appears to be yours or feels like it's yours. It's not actually yours. It's like my identity, right? My identity doesn't belong to me. As much as it belongs to me, it belongs to all the different people, all the different human beings that receive whatever they receive. That's me. And then ultimately, there's no belonging. I am not a thing. I am not a construct of thoughts. Period. And regardless. And totally. And that's liberation. I mean, that's beautiful. That's grace. Just listen, don't think. Just be. And if you're going to do something, give. If you're going to do something, don't do most things. If you're going to do something, meditate. If you're going to do something, listen to the Dhamma. Generosity isn't about what other people want. It's about you giving up what you want. Okay, go and practice that. Go and practice somatic awareness. Well, what? Well, what we're not doing here is we're not trying to tell people what to do or what to think, right? So there's a very practical system that one can use, which is guest and host, right? So let's say for here, that I'm the host. This is my house. This is my dominion. This is my responsibility. And you are a guest here. You can put this into other dualities like I'm the teacher, you're the student. You can put these kind of dualities there, not as like things to get stuck on or to fixate on, but as like that this is my YouTube channel, not your YouTube channel. So like practical contextual realities. And in those contextual realities, there's things that make sense and there's things that don't make sense. So if I invited you over to my home to have a meal, it wouldn't make much sense that the food in the fridge belonged to you. That wouldn't make sense. And in the same way, when we are going about in our normal lives and interacting with people, that guest and host dynamic is often shifting constantly, right? Unless we're very grounded in our practice. And because of that, it's really important that we don't try to tell other people what to do. So what other people do is the opportunity for us to be mindful and not attached to a particular outcome. Whether they do the right thing or the wrong thing, whether they do what we want them to do or they do what we don't want them to do. And that detachment, it doesn't mean that we're passive or submissive, but that we aren't overly involved in trying to unnecessarily police a certain outcome. What is that? Is that a lizard? I hope it's a lizard, not some kind of... What was that? Disappeared. So everything, every phenomena, every situation, every person, every moment is, if we're taking on the position of a meditator and someone who's working towards enlightenment or stabilizing the enlightenment that we already have a relationship with, they are all there to be used only, to be experienced only, without attachment. That's a wonderful gift that we can give people. There's a deep honesty in that. Can you say more about that, Kairaza? How do you experience that, or how does that express itself in your life? Yeah, this is why our practices of generosity need to be exceedingly practical. So we go to volunteer at a meditation center or a Buddhist temple near us. We go to volunteer our body and mind at the uh, food shelter, at the animal shelter. Um, we, we make a commitment to practice giving. Giving more of our time to the meditation of releasing the ego's hold on managing material and mental phenomena. We sacrifice our time to think, or our time to consume what we like to consume, and we listen to a Dharma talk. We listen to Ajahn Brahm, or we listen to Thich Nhat Hanh. So the generosity is not an escape, but rather a release. A release of whatever we're holding on to at that moment, which means at this moment. Releasing our holding on to what we see, releasing our holding on to what we hear, releasing our holding on to what we want, releasing our holding on entirely. So please listen closely. The inheritance from Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche. Please listen closely. We think, we remember, we plan. And the attention thus exerted moves towards an object and sticks to it. This mental movement is called thinking or conceptual mind. We have many different expressions in Tibetan to describe the functioning of this basic attitude of mind. This extroverted consciousness unaware of its own nature. This ignorant mind grabs hold of objects, forms, concepts about them, and gets involved and caught up in the concepts it has created. This is the nature of samsara, and it has been continuing through beginningless lifetimes up to the present moment. So, this is 5D, everybody. We're going to the holosphere, we're going to the universal mind, we're going to the Bang Bang Boogaloo. Please listen very, very closely. The inheritance, Tulkyu Urgyen Rinpoche. We think, we remember, we plan, and the attention thus exerted moves toward an object and sticks to it. This mental movement is called thinking or conceptual mind. We have many different expressions in Tibetan to describe the functioning of this basic attitude of mind. This extroverted consciousness, unaware of its own nature. This ignorant mind grabs hold of objects, forms concepts about them, and gets involved and caught up in the concepts it has created. This is the nature of samsara, and it has been continuing through beginningless lifetimes up to the present moment. Now, this is the time to shut that mouth and shut that mind and listen. Beginningless lifetimes, this is where we need to bring up our faith. It's very important. What kind of faith is this? Rob, are you trying to tell us to have faith in multiple lifetimes, that it's not just this lifetime, but there's many past lifetimes and there'll be many future lifetimes? Well, rather than saying that, what I'm saying is that you have already been born and you can die at any moment. You cannot conceptually understand that. You cannot intellectually wrap your head around that reality. But that is the way that it is. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter what your health is right now. A body that is born is a body that can die and that is going to die. When does death happen? Death happens spontaneously in the present moment. Through an earthquake, through a plane crash, through a missile landing in Israel, or a missile landing in Gaza. Missiles are very fast, but death is much, much faster than that. All these involvements are merely fabricated creations. They are not the natural state. They are based on the concepts of subject and object, perceiver and perceived. This dualistic structure, together with the disturbing emotions and the karma that is produced through them, are the forces that drive us from one samsaric experience to another. Yet all the while, there is still the basic nature, which is not made out of anything whatsoever. It is totally unconstructed and empty, and at the same time, it is aware. It has the quality of being able to cognize. This indivisible unity of being empty and cognizant is our original ground that is never lost. So something that is empty and aware. What we are missing is the recognition that our natural state is the indivisible unity of emptiness and cognizance. We miss that recognition because our mind is always searching somewhere else. We do not acknowledge our actual cognizant presence, and instead we are always preoccupied by looking elsewhere, outside of ourselves, making an opinion, sharing a view. And we perpetuate this process continuously. Shantideva said, "Unless you know the secret key point, whatever you do will miss the mark." The secret key point of mind is that its nature is a self-existing original wakefulness. To identify the key point, we need to receive the pointing out instruction, which tells and shows us the nature of your mind is the Buddha mind itself. We can also say this in terms of suffering. The nature of the suffering mind is the enlightened mind itself. Right now, we are like the dim-witted person who lost herself in Asansol, that's downtown Kathmandu, who runs around wailing, "I've lost myself, where am I?" The pointing out instruction is just like telling her, "You are you." Throughout beginningless samsara, sentient beings have never found themselves until somebody says, "You are right here." This is a metaphor for introducing the secret key point of mind. If it weren't for the Buddha's teachings, all sentient beings would be totally lost, because they need to be pointed toward that basic ground that is always present but never acknowledged. That is the purpose of the pointing out instruction. Literally, the instruction bringing you face to face with your own essence. This instruction is given great impressive names like Mahamudra, the Great Middle Way, or the Great Perfection. All of these teachings point toward the same basic nature. They are the exact opposite. Please listen closely, friends. They are the exact opposite of the conceptual thinking that holds a subject and object, the dualistic frame of mind that is unaware of its own nature. It doesn't have to be this way. We can know our own nature. We can realize it by applying the pith instructions of Mahamudra, the Great Middle Way, and the Great Perfection. Even though our nature is primordially enlightened, we are oblivious to that fact. This is the teaching that Buddhas and normal people have the same nature, the same enlightened nature, but Buddhas recognize that, and sentient beings do not know that. First, we need to recognize. This recognition is a recognition of, let's say, a thing, even though it's not a thing, but a recognition of that which is the exact opposite of the conceptual thinking that holds a subject and object, the dualistic frame of mind that is unaware of its own nature. Dear friends, this is the Vajra sword. There are no excuses, there are no debates, there are no opinions. This is death meets life here and now. This is you win, I lose, self. Concerned with this conceptual thinking that gives special importance to a subject and object, story-based conceptual thinking based on people, places, situations, opinions, and experiences. This dualistic frame of mind that is ignorant, unaware, lost in darkness. It does not have to be this way. We can know our own nature. We can realize it by applying the Paith instructions of Mahamudra, Zen, the Great Middle Way, and the Great Perfection. Even though our nature is primordially enlightened, we are oblivious to that fact, going on and on and on in dualistic thinking and giving special importance to our opinions. Therefore, we need to become re-enlightened. First, we need to recognize. Next, train in that recognition, and finally, attain stability. Once we are re-enlightened, we no longer need to wander in samsara. But let's say, for example, we could take on the position of a bodhisattva to go back into the world of suffering to help sentient beings. The Buddha nature is the very identity within which the body, speech, mind, qualities, and activities of all Buddhas are complete. It is out of the expression of these that the body, speech, and mind of all beings appear. In fact, the body, speech, and mind of any sentient being has the same origin as the body, speech, and mind of the awakened ones. Body, speech, and mind cannot come from earth or stone or matter. The unchanging quality is called the Vajra body. The unceasing quality is called the Vajra speech, and the undiluted quality is called the Vajra mind. The indivisible unity of the three is exactly what is meant by Buddha nature. Not recognizing in our own experience the unchanging quality of this Buddha nature, we entered into the encasement of a physical body of flesh and blood. Our speech became wrapped within the movement of breath to become voice and words. It appears and disappears. Consciousness began to hold a perceiver as separate from the perceived. In other words, it became a fixation on duality, a stop and start process that arises and ceases each moment. Thoughts come continuously, one after the other, like an endless string. This endless string of thought has continued from beginningless time and just goes on and on. That is how the normal state of mind is. If we don't now recognize our own nature in this lifetime, we fail to capture our natural seat of unchanging, self-existing wakefulness. Instead, we chase after one perishing thought after the other, like chasing after each new bead on the string. This is how samsara becomes endless. While we are governed by this involvement in thought, we are truly helpless. Who can stop samsara for us? There is nobody but ourselves. Even if all the sentient beings of the 6 realms were lined up and you cried, "Please help me so I can stop being overpowered by my own thinking," even then, not a single one of them could help. How sad that we are controlled by this involvement in thought. How sad that we are controlled by this involvement with thought. Day and night, life after life. We could try to blow up a nuclear bomb to stop samsara, but it still wouldn't help. Nuclear bombs can destroy cities, even countries, but they cannot stop the mind from thinking. Unless we become free of conceptual thinking, there is absolutely no way to end samsara and truly awaken to enlightenment. Great peace comes when conceptual thinking subsides, calms down. There is a way for that to happen. Thoughts are actually an expression of the Buddha nature. They are expressions of our natural face. If we truly recognize Buddha nature in that very same moment, any thought will vanish by itself, leaving no trace. This is what brings an end to samsara. There is a supreme method to do this. Once we know that method, there is nothing superior we need to know. This way is already at hand in ourselves. It is not something that we need to get from someone else. It is not something we need to buy, bribe, or search for and finally achieve. Such effort is not necessary at all. Once you recognize your own natural face, you have already transcended the 6 realms of samsara. What is the method? It is what one asks for when requesting a master to give instructions on how to recognize mind essence and train in it. Our mind essence is incredibly precious. It is the natural inheritance we possess right now. Receiving teachings on how to recognize the essence of mind and correctly applying those teachings is like the Buddha being placed in the palm of your own hand. That analogy means that at the moment of being introduced and recognizing, you don't have to seek for the awakened state somewhere else. Line up all the money, all the wealth in the whole world in one big heap and put it on one side. On the other side, put the recognition of Buddha nature, the nature of your own mind. What is most valuable? If you are going to somehow compare the two, I can promise you that recognizing mind essence, the amazing Buddha within, that is already here, is 1,000,000,000 times more valuable. If instead we continue to fool ourselves, we are simply doing what we have been doing for so long. How much trouble and misery have we gone through in samsara among the 6 realms? Do we want to continue like that? How much more misery won't we go through again while traveling through the 18 hells and the neighboring hells? Buddha taught that any sentient being has drunk more red-hot liquid metal in the hells than could fill an entire ocean. That is an example of the suffering we have endured. It is only because we are dull, ordinary beings that we have forgotten all about it. If we don't realize this natural state, there is no way to stop wandering about in the 6 realms of samsara. No one else is going to prevent you from rambling on, and it certainly won't stop by itself. What is of true value? We need to think about this for ourselves. When we do business and make a profit, we rejoice. If we have a loss, we fall into despair. Let's compare our business capital to our Buddha nature, which is like a wish-fulfilling jewel. If we don't use this wish-fulfilling jewel, endless samsara lies ahead of us. Isn't it just incredibly stupid to throw away our fortune, and troublesome as well? We need to think about this. I am not reciting this from memory. It is not a lie either. This is the real, crucial point. If we did not have a Buddha nature, nobody could blame us. But we do have a Buddha nature that is the identity of the three kayas of all Buddhas. However, as Junggun Kongtrul said, although my mind is the Buddha, I don't recognize it. Although my thinking is Dharmakaya, I don't realize it. Although non-fabrication is the innate, I fail to sustain it. Although naturalness is the basic state, I am not convinced. Guru, think of me. Quickly, look upon me with compassion. Bless me so that natural awareness is liberated into itself. Guru, think of me. Quickly, look upon me with compassion. Bless me so that natural awareness is liberated into itself. Take a rest. See you soon.